You are welcome here, no matter who you are, no matter where you come from, no matter what your background. You are welcome here to join us as we proclaim worth in our spiritual journeys. You are welcome to join us as we sing songs that uplift our very beings. We welcome you. Our guest speaker today is Elaine Castles, a longtime UU and a member of the Mid-Columbia UU Fellowship in Hood River. Eastrose acknowledges that for at least 13,000 years, many tribes and bands have made their lives here where our church home and our communities now exist. We remember and honor these people who made their homes in this land, the ones here now and those who lived here before. In peace, may we share this land and honor one another. Let's take a moment now to greet each other here today, both in the chapel and online. Please first stand and face the cameras by the clock on the back wall and wave hello to your friends online. Then turn to your neighbor and say hello. Hello. We can continue greeting one another after service today. For our online guests, if you would like to share a joy or sorrow during that portion of the service, you can do so by entering it in the YouTube chat, and those words will be shared aloud with everyone. I also encourage you to identify yourself in chat so we may better acknowledge your presence with us today. So before we get into it, remember to silence your cell phones. Let's read this together. I will read the words on the screen in yellow, and all of us will read together the words in white. We come to this time in this place
to recover the wondrous gift
of free religious community, to renew our faith in the holiness, goodness, and beauty of life,
to reaffirm the way of the open mind and full heart,
to rekindle the flame of memory and hope, and
to reclaim
the vision of an earth made fair,
with all her people one.
Elaine will light the chalice. Each morning, we must hold out the chalice of our being to receive, to carry, and give back. Opening words, try to praise the mutilated world. Try to praise the mutilated world. Remember June's long days and wild strawberries, drops of rosé wine, the nettles that methodically overgrow the abandoned homesteads of exiles. You must praise the mutilated world. You watch the stylish yachts and ships. One of them had a long trip ahead of it, while salty oblivion awaited others. You've seen the refugees going nowhere. You've heard the executioners sing joyfully. You should praise the mutilated world. Remember the moments when we were together in a white room and the curtain fluttered. Return in thought to the concert where music flared. You gathered acorns in the park in autumn, and leaves eddied over the earth's scars. Praise the mutilated world and the gray feather a thrush lost, and then gentle light that strays and vanishes and returns. Our opening hymn is number 51 in the gray hymnal, Lady of the Season's Laughter. Please rise as you are willing and able in body or spirit, and sing along. Tara, and children, please join us up front for Time for All Ages.
Good morning. Today we're going to explore a powerful idea that's at the heart of our faith, justice. Justice isn't just a word, it's a value we hold dear, a commitment we make to ensure that everyone, no matter who they are, is treated fairly and with respect. It's about making sure that all people have equal opportunities, that their voices are heard, and that their rights are protected. When we work for justice, we're putting our beliefs into action. We're saying that we care about creating a world where everyone has the chance to thrive, where kindness and equality aren't just nice ideas, but real everyday experiences. Justice can look like standing up for someone who's being treated unfairly, or working to change rules that aren't fair to everyone. Today's story is called A Little Book About Justice by Ashwin Chacko. As we listen, let's think about what justice means to us. How can we bring more fairness and compassion into our world, starting right here in our community? Remember that even small acts of kindness and fairness can make a big difference. Together, we can help create a more just and loving world for everyone. A little book about justice. When we think about justice, we might imagine something awesome, like a knight wielding a sword. Something lawful, like a judge in his robes. Something fantastic, like a league of superheroes. Or something hard, like a person behind bars. But justice is not a person or a thing. It's a feeling deep inside us that comes alive with action. Justice is about reaching out and standing up for those who are powerless. Justice teaches us about equality for everyone, no matter what we look like or where we come from. Justice done right comes from a place of love. It seeks the good of everyone so they are treated fairly. It brings balance to the world so we can live in harmony. But most importantly, justice is about doing what is right, even when it's hard, for you, me, and all humanity. Justice is our promise to treat everyone fairly and our commitment to take action so all people have the same chances to be happy, safe, and respected. Now we'll leave the adults to continue this conversation while we continue into our classroom. Thank you. And if the adults along the center aisle will form a bridge, we'll sing the children out.
Okay, we're going to do some meditation. So please uncross your legs, uncross your arms, shake out your hands. Plant both your feet on the ground and gently rest your hands palm up on your lap, whatever's comfortable. Press the soles of your feet against the floor, grounding yourself to the earth from your seat through the soles of your feet. And sit up as straight as is comfortable for you. Imagine stacking the vertebrae of your spine one on top of the other from your seat up through the crown of your head. Imagine a thread is pulling you up through your spine from your seat through your crown. And soften your gaze downward or close your eyes. Breathe in through your nose slowly, counting to 4, and then holding for 2. Then exhale slowly through your mouth, counting to 6, and hold for 2. So breathe in through your nose for 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold for 1, 2, and then exhale through your mouth for 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and hold for 1, 2. So continue breathing in through your nose for 4, hold for 2, exhale out all your breath for 6, and hold for 2. As you're breathing, don't worry about holding in your tummy. Concentrate on your breathing. As you breathe in, expand your belly. Feel your feet planted on the earth. As you breathe out, contract your belly. Drop your shoulders away from your ears. Don't worry about anything outside of your body. There is no place you need to be but right here, right now. You are relaxed and open, counting as you breathe. Feel yourself grounded to the earth with your crown lifted to the sky. Just be here now, quietly breathing for 1 minute. Let us be at peace with our bodies and our minds. Let us return to ourselves and become wholly ourselves. Let us be aware of the source of being, common to us all and to all living things. Evoking the presence of the great compassion, let us fill our hearts with our own compassion towards ourselves and towards all living beings. And for us, pray that we ourselves cease to be the cause of suffering to each other. With humility, with awareness of the existence of life and of the sufferings that are going on around us, let us practice the establishment of peace in our hearts and on earth. Now, please remain seated and sing 1007 in the Teal hymnal. There's a river flowing in my soul. The words will be on the screen. I think the next slide. Immortality by Richard Jeffries. Oops, I guess we don't have one for that. I'll do a reading. It is eternity now. I'm in the midst of it. It is about me and the sunshine. I am in it as the butterfly in the light-laden air. Nothing has to come. It is now. Now is eternity. Now is the immortal life.
That was lovely. Well, good morning, everybody. It's Very good to be back here with you again. And I bring you greetings from Sister UUs up the gorge a little bit. You are the closest UU congregation to us, so we kind of have a special tie with you guys. Okay. I'd like to tell you about my friend Vicki. I met Vicki a number of years ago when I was working as a consultant in a program for people with disabilities back in Maryland. I've not seen her since I moved to Oregon more than 15 years ago. Indeed, I doubt that she's still alive. However, her influence on my life has been profound. Vicki and I were born only a few years apart and in the same area of the country. But the circumstances in which we entered life were radically different. I was born into a loving, stable, and economically secure family. I was blessed with a healthy body, a quick mind, and a cheerful temperament. And as the years have gone by, I've been given almost every gift that life has to offer. My blessings have been rich, almost beyond imagining. Vicki was not so lucky. She was born to a 19-year-old mother from an impoverished family in rural Appalachia. For reasons that no one knows, she suffered a lack of oxygen at birth. The result was severe cerebral palsy. Vicki actually considered herself to be relatively fortunate because she had a good mind and can speak intelligibly, if she could find people patient enough to listen to her slow, laborious, and somewhat garbled conversation. But most of the rest of us would view Vicki's life with something akin to horror. Vicki had no voluntary control over any of her limbs. She had to rely on others for all of her care, feeding, dressing, diapering, because bedpans were too painful and too much trouble. She spent the last 15 years or so of her life in a nursing home, since she had no one left in her family willing or able to care for her. Most of the time, her only company was that of low-paid nursing assistants and elderly, often demented residents, many of whom were likely to die just as she got to know them. This was Vicki's one and only chance at life, and this is what she was given. The disparity between Vicki's life and mine raises some of the most fundamental questions of my religious life. Throughout our history, we Unitarian Universalists have been firmly committed to the principle of justice. Indeed, the revision of Article 2 that was passed at our General Assembly in June declares justice to be one of our 6 core values. Most of us are familiar with the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s famous statement that the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice. But fewer of us are aware that this phrase actually first appeared in a sermon delivered in 1853 by the Unitarian abolitionist minister Theodore Parker. So, yes, the concept of justice is absolutely central to our UU faith. But where, I ask myself, is the justice in Vicki's situation? Surely she did not deserve the circumstances into which she was born. And I know that I have certainly done nothing to merit my own good fortune. So why have I been so blessed while Vicki was seemingly cursed? How do I accept my own good fortune in a world so manifestly riddled with unfairness? And what obligations does my immense privilege confer on me? A belief in justice appears to be the most fundamental of human values. Psychological research shows that by the age of 7 or 8, children are strongly committed to the idea of fairness, as all of us who have mediated disputes between our children are acutely aware. As children, many of us were taught to believe in an all-powerful God who, much like Santa Claus, rewarded good little boys and girls but punished those who disobeyed him. Even though I suspect that most of us here this morning have grown beyond such simplistic understandings, we Americans are still firmly wedded to the ideal of a meritocracy, in which those who work hard and follow the rules have an innate right to the good things in life. And as for those less fortunate, well, they probably deserve what they got. But perhaps even more basic than our desire to see people get what they, quote, deserve, is our almost desperate need to believe in an orderly universe. The idea that things might just happen for no apparent reason, that our precious concepts of justice may not be woven into the fabric of the universe, is terribly frightening. Rabbi Harold Kushner has addressed this fear in his classic book, When Bad Things Happen to Good People. I quote, "Can you accept the idea that some things happen for no reason, that there is randomness in the universe?" he asks us. Some people cannot handle that idea, he continues. They look for connections, desperately trying to make sense of all that happens. They accept that God is cruel, or they are sinners, rather than accept randomness. When it comes right down to it, many of us would rather feel guilty than powerless. This is a dilemma that has preoccupied traditional religious thinkers for millennia, dating back at least to the Old Testament book of Job. And Christian theologians have come up with many explanations that purport to help us make sense of these seemingly random events. Perhaps suffering serves some higher purpose that we simply don't have the wisdom to understand. Maybe painful events help make us better people or teach us important lessons that we would not otherwise have learned. Some view suffering as a test of religious faith. And if all else fails, it's possible to see death as leading us to a better place where we'll receive our long-delayed reward in heaven. However, as Rabbi Kushner points out, these explanations, quote, are really intended not so much to ease the pain of the grieving person as to defend and justify God, to persuade us that bad is really good and our apparent misfortune serves God's greater purpose. Even for traditionally religious persons, these explanations often fall sadly short of the mark, and they certainly do not work for me. There may be some overarching pattern or principle behind the events that befall us human beings, but I cannot see it, at least from my limited human perspective. Many of the events in life seem basically random to me. Why was I born into such fortunate circumstances while Vicky appeared to be cursed from the beginning? Why did my son's best friend, who led the healthiest life that one could imagine, die of a rare cancer at the age of 35? Why was my innocent baby sister Susie born with an inoperable heart defect? There's no cosmic justice here that I can see. The universe seems to be indifferent to our human conceptions of how things ought to be. And so I simply can't believe in some loving or justice-seeking God or some kind of higher power or some overarching moral principle built into the universe that supports our precious ideal of justice. However, I do firmly believe that we can have loving and justice-seeking people inhabiting our little corner of the world. And therein lies our salvation. Former President Barack Obama was so taken by Dr. King's statement about the arc of justice that he had it woven into a rug that he placed in his Oval Office when he assumed the presidency. But Obama added an important caveat to Dr. King's words. The arc of the universe may bend toward justice, Obama said, but it doesn't bend on its own. We have to bend it. So maybe justice is not inherent in the nature of the universe. I personally find it impossible to believe that it is. But it is instead a human quality that we're responsible for creating for ourselves. I think this distinction is a helpful way to look at the COVID pandemic that has so devastated our world in the last several years. COVID is a natural phenomenon that came to us seemingly out of nowhere, disrupting the lives of virtually everyone on this planet. It's probably the single most damaging global event that's befallen us since World War II. And being human, we look for someone to blame. Having a scapegoat makes us feel less powerless, less like we're living in a basically random universe. And so the virus was unleashed on us by the evil Chinese, or it was developed in a secret lab by some combination of George Soros, Bill Gates, and Anthony Fauci. The whole thing is just like a gigantic hoax. People naturally gravitate toward conspiracy theories when they feel frightened, especially when these theories are promoted by those at the very top of our government. But although the virus itself may have been just a random event, its grossly unequal effects on our various communities is the product of a very human injustice. No, we did not do anything to deserve this pandemic. However, we human beings did create the racial and ethnic disparities on which it fed. We allowed the unsafe working conditions that facilitated the virus's rapid spread. We refused to create a health system that would serve all equally. We failed to provide adequate financial support for those most severely economically impacted. We created the situations that caused these gross inequities, and we human beings have both the power and the responsibility to change them. And so the way I see it, life may be fundamentally unfair, but people don't have to be. And one of the basic responsibilities of our religious communities is to find ways to respond to this basic tension that seems built into the very nature of things. We promote justice where it is possible, while finding ways to help people cope with the many unfair, random events that befall us. In other words, we take our guidance from that well-worn but exceedingly wise Serenity prayer. You all know it. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Well, we activist UUs tend to be pretty good with the courage to change part of this equation. For example, we know that we must do all we can to dismantle centuries of racial injustice. We must work to achieve health care for all. We must advocate for better labor conditions for our most vulnerable workers. We must insist on adequate government support for those in need. We must do everything within our power to mitigate the devastating effects of climate change. In all of these ways, we honor our second Unitarian Universalist principle, in which we covenant to, quote, affirm and promote justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. But we're often less comfortable with the other part of the Serenity Prayer, the grace to accept things that we cannot change. Life is transient and unpredictable, and random bad things can happen to any of us. One of the functions of our religious community is to help us deal with this basic reality of human existence. Rabbi Kushner provides some guidance here. He suggests that we should ask not, God, why are you doing this to me? But rather, God, see what is happening to me. Can you help me? And in fact, whether they use traditional God language or not, many millions have found in their religious communities the support and sustenance they need to make it through the most horrific of tragedies. As I've said, my own religious beliefs do not include a belief in a personal God, but I do find great meaning in the Unitarian Universalist concept of the interdependent web of creation. This beloved seventh UU principle, now subsumed in the new Article 2 under the core value of interdependence, tells me that I'm not alone in the universe. Rather, I'm connected on some fundamental level with other people, with the natural world around me, and perhaps with some ultimate source of reality that people may call God, or the spirit of life, or the source of all being. And I believe that these fundamental connections are what enable us to cope with the transience of life and with the inevitable random bursts of pain and loss that are a part of the human condition. Let me go back to my friend Vicki. Vicki was no plaster saint. She could be ill-tempered and argumentative. She had days when she felt frightened and discouraged, when she questioned whether her life was worth living. But on the whole, Vicki was vibrantly alive. She welcomed the small gifts that each day could bring, whether her morning coffee, birds outside her window, or a trip to the local shopping center in her wheelchair. She accepted the life she was given and lived it as fully as she could. When I asked her one time what kept her going, her immediate response was friends. Well, from my perspective, Vicki's circle of friendship was rather pathetic. I was no doubt her most significant friend, and I was able to see her for perhaps an hour a week. But she formed relationships with virtually all of the residents and staff members in her nursing home. She knew all of the visitors, all of the gossip, and probably every regulation that the licensing authorities ever issued. Despite her severe disabilities, Vicki reached out to others, and those connections sustained her. In my view, one of the major functions of a religious community is to nurture these human connections. Let me quote again from Rabbi Kushner. One goes to a religious service not in order to find God. There are plenty of other places where he can be found, but to find a congregation. That wonderful storyteller, Harry Golden, makes this point in one of his stories. When he was young, he once asked his father, "If you don't believe in God, why do you go to synagogue so regularly?" His father answered, "Jews go to synagogue for all sorts of reasons. My friend Garfinkel, who is Orthodox, goes to talk to God. I go to talk to Garfinkel." But it's not only our relationships with other people that provide us with sustenance and support. Many of us find our connections with the natural world to be equally important. Those of us fortunate enough to live in our beautiful Pacific Northwest can experience nature in all its drama, marveling at our majestic snow-covered mountains or immersing ourselves in the sound of ocean waves crashing against cliffs. But we can also enjoy our relationship with the natural world in that first whiff of spring lilacs, or watching the hummingbird come to the feeder in our backyard, or pulling the dirt-encrusted carrot from the warm earth. There are numerous small pleasures available to each of us every day that nurture our connections with the rest of creation and remind us that, bad as things may be, we are not alone. Finally, our value of interdependence suggests, at least to me, that we're all part of some ultimate reality that's larger than ourselves. I don't have a name for this foundational reality, though some may call it God or the spirit of life. But I do know that if I can give up my desperate efforts to control the universe, which I work very hard at doing, and to insist that it operate according to my own human rules, I can sometimes sense its presence. This interdependent web of which we are all a part constitutes a net that can support me in moments of despair if only I can open my heart to its presence. There is nothing here that guarantees that bad things won't happen to us. Indeed, pain and loss are an integral part of human experience. But we don't have to face suffering alone. The universe is there to support us. To me, This is the meaning of the beautiful reading from the poet Wendell Berry that appears in the back of our gray hymnal. I see this poem as a sort of UU version of the 23rd Psalm, and so I will close with these words from Berry. When despair for the world grows in me, and I wake in the night at the least sound in fear of what my life and my children's lives may be, I go and lie down where the wood drake rests in his beauty on the water, and the great heron feeds. I come into the peace of wild things who do not tax their lives with forethought of grief. I come into the presence of the still water, and I feel above me the day-blind stars waiting with their light. For a time, I rest in the grace of the world and am free. And now, let's join together in our closing hymn, which is number 128 in your gray hymnal, For All That Is Our Life, and the words will also appear on your screen, and I invite you to rise in body or spirit as you are able.
Half of each week's Sunday collection is shared with a local organization doing good works in our area. This third quarter, our Sharing the Bounty partner is Outgrowing Hunger, nurturing connection to nature, food, and community. Outgrowing Hunger builds and operates community farms and gardens for refugees, immigrants, and people who care about affordable access to real food in Portland and Gresham. If you are a first-time visitor, please let the basket pass you by. You are our guest today. We now gratefully receive the gifts of this congregation. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. The closing words are going to be spoken as a response reading, and it's the poem Continue by Maya Angelou. And I will read the words in yellow, and you can read the words in white. My wish for you is that you continue to be who and how you are, to astonish a mean world with your acts of kindness. Continue. To allow humor to lighten the burden of your tender heart. Continue. In a society dark with cruelty, to let the people hear the grandeur of the sacred in the peals of your laughter. Continue. To let your eloquence elevate the people to heights they had only imagined. Continue. To remind the people that each is as good as the other, and that no one is beneath nor above you. Continue. To remember your own young years and look with favor upon the lost and the least and the lonely. Continue. To put the mantle of your protection around the bodies of the young and defenseless. Continue. To take the hand of the despised and diseased and walk proudly with them in the high street. Some might see you and be encouraged to do likewise. Continue. To plant a public kiss of concern on the cheek of the sick and the aged and infirm, and count that as a natural action to be expected. Continue. To let gratitude be the pillow upon which you kneel to say your nightly prayer, and let faith be the bridge you build to overcome evil and welcome good. Continue. To ignore no vision which comes to enlarge your range and increase your spirit. Continue. To dare to love deeply and risk everything for the good thing. Continue. To float happily in the sea of infinite substance which set aside riches for you before you had a name. And by doing so, know that you and your work will be able to continue eternally. And I'd like to thank a few different people, Mary Reese for piano and also decorating the chapel. Beautiful job. Dakota Wright for being our AV champion back there. April Hall and Richard Curtis, our greeters for today. And of course, our speaker, Elaine Castles. And last but not least, Jessica Heflin for coffee, which is in the back later. Okay, announcements. There are lots of announcements in Petals, which you can read for yourself, including a church picnic next Saturday. And I don't know all the details for that, so you need to look in Petals if you want to go. From Karen, please join us next Sunday, August 18th at 12:15 after the service for a learning session, U.S. Elections 101. Teresa Squires Osborne will lead a discussion about the Electoral College, national and local elections in our county. A little more information can be found in Petals and on the Eastrose website, and refreshments will be served. From Susie, this year will be the 30th annual Eastrose auction. The information is in Petals, and more will be coming to your email. October 3rd through 5th is coming soon. We need raffle baskets, items, and services for donating. And Reverend Susie Machanga Watson can use her help with ideas and suggestions for the event itself. Please contact her either by email, text, or phone call. Thank you. Okay, the service is now ended. Those here at Eastrose are invited to remain and have some coffee in the Thatcher room in the back. And come next week, we hope to see you and bring a friend. Thanks, everyone.